for joining us today. We have a special guest today. His name is David Wall. He's from Pillar to Post, and he's serving the Durham region, and he's a certified home inspector. And today we will be talking about pre-listing inspections. For those of you who may not know, a pre-listing inspection, usually an inspection occurs when a house is up for sale and a buyer is interested in purchasing that home, and as part of a condition from the buyer to move forward is to have a satisfactory inspection report about the house. Well, what a pre-listing home inspection is from the seller side before a buyer even enters the picture, who would want to get a professional inspection done on the house, just so that the seller would know what the condition is of the house before putting it up on the market. So we will be discussing that today. Welcome and thanks for being here, David. Appreciate your being here. Would you mind telling our audience who you are, what you do, your qualifications are for talking about this topic, and perhaps how they can get in touch with you?
Okay. Well, David Wall from Pillar to Post Home Inspections in Durham region. My wife and I own the Pillar to Post in this area since 1995. I'm a registered home inspector, so I'm a member of the Ontario, the Canadian, and the American Association of Home Inspection. I'm building code qualified, so I'm a member of the OBOA. And I'm also an indoor air quality auditor. So, you know, we do mold sampling, mold testing, that type of thing. And we also do pre-listing inspections. So that brings us full circle.
Okay. So I've just given our viewers a little bit of what a pre-listing inspection is from a realtor's perspective. Would you mind giving us something about pre-listing inspection from the angle or from the perspective of a home inspector?
Well, I can tell you a scenario that I just went through. So just this past week. So we do an inspection on a house, and the roof is much older than the vendor has said that it is.
Okay.
The furnace is 10 years older than the vendor said it was. The air conditioner is 5 years older than the person said it was. So doing a pre-listing inspection puts all those things on paper.
Okay.
So from a home buyer's standpoint, they can look at that report and say, okay, that roof is 12 years old. That furnace is 1993. So that way that information is available, you know, ahead of time, right. So that, you know, we're not standing there with egg on our face, you know, that somebody's written in an offer that the furnace is 10 years old and it's 19. So pre-listing inspection is different because it's for the vendor. The person that owns the house is paying for the report, and they are getting the report. That way that they know ahead of time how that house is going to test. So at the final day of you know, all the paperwork and everything that you've done, it doesn't fall apart on an unknown defect. Everybody knows what the defects are before they're making that offer.
Okay. Now, let me just touch on something that you already alluded to. You've mentioned about the benefits of a pre-listing inspection for the home vendor. But what, if any, would be the benefits of the pre-listing inspection for the person thinking about buying the house?
Well, I'll give an example. Is right now it's a very hot market in Toronto. Having a pre-listing inspection available for purchasers, especially if it's a quality report, you know, they're making that decision based on good information. And a lot of vendors will make that information available, so they'll either leave it sitting right on the table, or our reports are also computerized. So if I send you a copy of the report and you have a purchaser that's interested in it, the vendor releases that information. Everybody has that information. So, and it's all the same information. So it's not, I got a piece of that, I got a piece of that. It'll say, you know, this is page 21 out of a 39-page report. So that way everybody's dealing with the same information.
Okay. Now, with this question, I'm going to try to have you dispel the myth that by doing a pre-listing inspection that you have the vendor's best interest in mind, which is, in my experience, is totally not true. You're there to inspect the house and do a full report on the house. Is that correct? Because I've experienced one time where I was working with a purchaser, and the vendor had offered a a report as a result of a pre-listing inspection. And my buyer adamantly wanted to still have their own inspector look at the house. And when I asked why, for some reason they were coming from the point wherein obviously this report was done by a person or a company who was paid by the vendor. I would want someone working on my side. And I try to talk to my vendor saying that a home inspector reports on what they see and they do not see on the house, regardless of whether the information will benefit the buyer or the vendor. Without bias, and a home inspector reports on the house. Could you please talk about that a little bit?
When you're dealing with a registered home inspector, which I am,
right?
We deal, when we do an inspection, we have a standards of practice that we have to follow, and that standards of practice is in every binder report that we provide to a client. You have to make sure that your report meets those standards of practice.
I see.
Now, if an inspector doesn't belong to the Ontario Association of Home Inspector, the Canadian Association of Home Inspector, they may not follow the same standards of practice that we do.
Mm-hmm.
The home inspectors are not regulated to the same extent that you are.
Like realtors are, okay.
So you could have somebody make a home inspection sound different than it actually is.
Okay.
If you're looking at a report that doesn't have anything bad in it, then I'd be getting my own home inspection too.
Okay, I
because
understand.
it's probably, you know, different vendors will say, well, do you have to put that in the report? And we'll say, yeah, of course we have to put that in the report because it's a fact.
Right.
And the reality is most people can see that.
Mm.
So when they go through and they're looking at a report that doesn't have an obvious defect,
right,
then they know that report is jacked one way or another.
I understand.
So I'd be looking for my own home inspection as well.
Okay, let me go off topic just for a little bit. As a consumer, what are the things that you recommend that we look for when looking for or hiring a home inspector? What are the things, if you can give us a short checklist that we can use in order to find a qualified home inspector, what would those items be?
That's an excellent question, because most people will look at the home inspector and say, well, what is the price?
Right.
You know, and then they'll make their decision based on the price.
Based on the price, I understand.
Say with Pillar to Post, you're dealing with a home inspector that has to carry errors and omissions insurance, has to carry general liability insurance, part of our process. So God help you if you ever did make a mistake, we carry $1 million in errors and omissions insurance. Not all home inspectors carry that. Is it a written report?
Right.
So, you know, if I'm paying you $400, what type of report am I getting? Is it a checklist report or is it a narrative report? Do I have any photographs in the report? When you get a Pillar to Post report, it's a narrative report, it's a written report, and you got photographs in it as well. All the major components, because we check over 1,600 items in the house. So certainly we are not going to be the cheapest, and we don't present ourselves that way. The same way that Remax is, you know, number one in the real estate industry.
You get what you pay for,
exactly. So we do not compete on price any more than you compete on price. So we compete on the value of the product that's delivered to the client. And you know what? If people get a good, fair, honest inspection, they got nobody's paying for that.
Exactly. And what about with regards to certification and board membership? What are the things that we need to ask a home inspector?
Well, if a home inspection is a registered home inspector with the Ontario Association of Home Inspection, so they've gone through a process, so they've gone through the education part of it. Their reports have been verified by a third party.
Okay.
I'm a national certificate holder as well, which means that my reports have actually been third party reviewed, so reviewed by my peers. So other home inspectors looking at your report and saying, okay, this is a house with known defects, you better pick out the important known defects. So you want to be dealing with an inspector that's gone through that process.
And if someone were to call you and have some questions about inspection or would want to use your services for a home inspection, does the relationship end after you give them the report, or what can they expect? They do get a report from you, right?
Oh no, absolutely. And we have three actually different types of packages. So, you know, we have our Plus report, which is 1,600 items, computerized report, photographs. But we also have a premium inspection, which includes an infrared camera, a recall check on appliances, enhanced customer service, a roaded inspection, and also lifetime maintenance advisory. So that way, if somebody has a question, you know, whether it's a year down the road or 5 years down the road, they can email us. But if somebody's our client, it's the same in your business too.
Right.
If somebody's your client, they're your client till they die.
Yeah, you have raving fans, and they will be clients for life.
Exactly.
I agree. Okay. Now going back to the pre-listing inspection.
Yep.
Other than the benefits from the home vendor and the home seller, what is the difference between the package that you offer as a pre-listing inspection versus a buyer hiring you to do an inspection on the home?
Well, the big difference with a pre-listing inspection is the vendor actually owns that report.
Okay.
So have you ever been in a situation where a purchaser does an inspection on the house, they back out of the deal, and you really don't know why?
That has happened.
Yes. Because there's no obligation on their part to share the report with the vendor at all.
Okay.
Lots of times it's just written it has to be a satisfactory inspection. They say, well, it's not satisfactory. See ya. So with a pre-listing inspection, the vendor knows what the issues are in the house, and they can either remediate them, so they know that there's mold in the attic, they can take care of it. They might want to do nothing, or they might want to do a price reduction to say, well, that's a $2,000 repair that I knew about now.
And they would rather not fix it, and they just adjust the price of the home.
So the big difference from the home inspector standpoint is who owns the report.
Right.
In a pre-listing inspection, the vendor owns the report, so they have control of the report. So they can share the report, they can bury the report in the backyard. It doesn't matter. From our standpoint, if we re-inspect the house again, our obligation would be to say to the client, I don't know if you know this, but we've inspected this house before, and then we would do a completely different, a completely unbiased report on the house, which has happened.
Now I'll ask the obvious, just for clarity's sake. So if the vendor has marketed their house as a house that has gone through a pre-listing inspection as part of the marketing, and a buyer finds out that Pillar to Post was the company that did the inspection, the buyer cannot go to you and ask for that report.
That's right.
Okay, so it's whoever ordered the inspection owns the report, and will have the ability to share that with the vendor at their discretion.
That's right. And sometimes the vendor, and we caution vendors on this as well, that because our reports will have the good, the bad, and the ugly in the report, whether it's a pre-listing inspection or not. So what we'll say to a vendor is, listen, this skylight leaks, or this skylight's damaged. Right. If a client has a question about it, refer them to us, right? Because they're not in a position, they weren't on the roof, they didn't see what we saw. Right. They may have a picture of it, but they're in no position to tell a client that's a $500 repair or a $5,000 repair. So we'll, if the vendor is good enough that they share that information, that's great, but don't try to interpret it.
Okay,
because that's where you're going to get into trouble. It'd be like me trying to interpret some of the clauses in here. You went to school for that, and I went to school for roofs.
Exactly.
So it's just kind of what you know.
Okay, and if someone uses your services for a pre-listing inspection, and on your report there are a lot of things that they need to address, would you be able to help the vendor out in terms of contacts and referrals to other professionals?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. So some things are going to be homeowner can repair, and some things are going to be you need a qualified electrician to do that. Okay. And that's just every day at the office for us. So if somebody can do a homeowner repair, we'd have no beefs about saying, that's probably something that most handy people can do. Okay. If it runs into that it's an active leak underneath the kitchen sink or electrical that needs to be done, we're going to refer that to a professional to do that.
For the benefit of our audience who may not know what an inspection entails, would you be able to give us the introductory description of what you do and what you don't do, what a client can expect and should not expect from a home inspection?
We start on the outside, start from the top to the bottom, looking at the grading, the roof, the structure, the windows. Water penetration is the #1 callback for home inspectors. So always really hip to the fact of, is the basement going to leak? Is the windows going to leak? Is the doors going to leak? Is the roof's going to leak? So you want to look at all those items. When we get into the inside of the house, we do exactly the same thing. Start from the top to the bottom. So that way, if you're running the water, when you get to the next floor, if it's leaking, you have a nice wet stain there waiting for you.
Right.
We do have infrared cameras, so in certain scenarios, if we think that it's leaking, we use a moisture meter. If we want verification of that, or if there's no evidence, but we kind of think that it is, that infrared camera can tell us what we can't see.
Okay.
We're going to run all of the mechanicals in the house, so furnace, air conditioner in certain types of the year, every plumbing fixture in the house, every light fixture in the house, opening the electrical panel to take a look at the electrical panel, sump pumps, fireplaces. Both Brian and I are wet certified for fireplaces and wood stoves. So it's a written report, it's a good documented report, and it has the photograph. So whether it's a pre-listing inspection or whether it's a home inspection, it's a lot of information. It's going to be accurate information for a purchaser.
Okay. And what are the things that you find that people expect of you, but it's not something that they should expect from a home inspection? What are the things that people expect you to deliver, but you really don't?
Well, if you watch a lot of television shows, you know, there'll be a stain in the ceiling, so they rip the ceiling down.
Yes.
You know, so we use a moisture meter, we use an infrared camera, but a home inspection, you basically have to leave the house in the same condition as you found it.
Okay, so the TV home inspection where they rip everything apart. And,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's TV land home
So
inspection.
we use a moisture meter, but we don't use a sledgehammer. So,
Okay.
So you can't do anything destructive in the house. You can't move their china cabinets. You have to take respect. The person that owns that house, that's their castle, so you certainly have to respect it. So we have a standards of practice that really, when we provide it to every client, that tells them, here's what we can do and here's what we can't do, and non-destructive is a big part of that. You can't do anything destructive in the house.
Okay. Last question before we let you go today is, you've been a home inspector for a long time. What advances in technology in the home inspection field are you using right now for the benefit of home buyers and home sellers who want you to do a pre-listing inspection?
Well, I think the quality of the moisture meters has advanced so much in 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we have infrared cameras available to us now that we didn't have 17 years ago. So all those things are big pluses, for us. We use a computer to generate the report, where our initial reports were handwritten reports.
Wow.
And only I could read them.
I can't even imagine that. Okay, so I'm sure there's a lot more questions that our viewers may have that we weren't able to cover. I would like to give our viewers an opportunity to ask that questions directly to you, or if anyone out there who wants to use your services for a home inspection, could you please tell them how they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, that'd be great. It's just my name, so David.Wall, W-A-L-L, David.Wall at pillartopost.com, and our website is pillartopost.com/Oshawa. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us today. Please don't forget to subscribe to our videos. We have other topics wherein we talk to Dave about the expertise in home inspection. Please don't hesitate to click on the links to the right of this video, and we'll see you soon, and thank you for your time. Have a good day.